Thursday, 1st of October, 1942. That was 76 years ago, not that long ago. Our protagonist, our lead character, Anne, she was only 12 years old, so she would have been 88. That's not very old. I know people who are older than 88, and they still go to the movies every Friday night. Thursday, the 1st of October, 1942. Dear Kitty, I got a terrible shock yesterday. Suddenly at 8 o'clock the bell rang loudly. Of course, I thought that someone had come. You'll guess who I mean. But I calmed down a bit when everyone said it must be some urchins or perhaps the postman. The days are becoming very quiet here. Lewin, a small Jewish chemist and dispenser, works for Mr. Kraler in the kitchen. He knows the whole building well, and therefore we are always afraid that he'll take it into his head to have a peep in the old laboratory. We are as quiet as mice. Who, 3 months ago, would ever have guessed that Quicksilver Ann would have to sit still for hours, and what's more, could? The 29th was Mrs. Van Daan's birthday. Although it could not be celebrated in a big way, we managed a little party in her honor with a specifically nice meal, and she received small presents and flowers. Red carnations from her husband that seemed to be a family tradition. To pause for a moment on the subject of Mrs. Van Daan, I must tell you that her attempts to flirt with Daddy are a source of continual irritation for me. She strokes his face and hair, pulls her skirt right up, and makes so-called witty remarks, trying in this way to attract Pym's attention. Pym, thank goodness, doesn't find her either attractive or funny, so he doesn't play ball. Mummy doesn't behave like that with Mrs. Van Daan. I've said that to Mrs. Van Daan's face. Oh, Mommy doesn't behave like that with Mr. Van Daan. I've said that to Mrs. Van Daan's face. So Mrs. Van Daan flirts with Anne's father, but Anne's mother doesn't flirt with Mrs. Van Daan's husband, Mr. Van Daan. My eyes are kind of red, huh? Now and then Peter comes out of his shell, and it can be quite funny. We have one thing in common from which everyone usually gets a lot of amusement. We both love dressing up. He appeared in one of Mrs. Van Daan's very narrow dresses, and I put on his suit. He wore a hat and a cap. The grown-ups were doubled up with laughter as we enjoyed ourselves as much as they did. Ellie had brought new skirts for Margot and me at Bungenkorf's. The material is rotten, just like sacking, and they cost 24 florins and 750 florins respectively. What a difference compared to before the war. Another nice thing I've been keeping up my sleeve, Ellie has written to some secretarial school or other and ordered a correspondence course in shorthand for Margot, Peter, and me. You wait and see what perfect experts we shall be next year. In any case, it's extremely important to be able to write in a code. Oh, she's want us to write in a code. That's cool. I really like the correspondence course, how they want to continue their education despite everything that's going on. This is Anne Frank's book. My name is Gregory Brandt. I'm a writer too. I wrote a book called Gonzo Education. I welcome you to take a look at that, and I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Thanks again.